The City Council Committee on Administration and Finance, co-posted with the Committee of the Whole, will meet in person today, Thursday, April 13th, 2023, at 6 p.m. for the purpose of discussing compensation of the mayor per Chapter 2, Section 142 of City Ordinance regarding the mayor. This meeting is being held in City Council Chambers, 93 Washington Street, Salem, Massachusetts, second floor. Notice of this meeting was posted on April 11th, 2023 at 4:01 p.m. Individuals may listen, view, or participate remotely in the meeting via remote platform called Zoom by navigating to zoom.us, entering webinar ID 830-1889-4326, and entering password 842-329. You may also call toll-free at 877-853-5257. This meeting is being recorded. We have, looks like all members of the Administration and Finance Committee present. Councilors Hapworth, Merkel, Stott, and Watson-Felt. And this is co-posted with the Committee of the Whole, and it looks like we have all other members of the council present. Except for Councilors Varela and Morcillo. Okay. So this is a review that we undertake annually. It is, as I said previously, required by city ordinance. And so what we have in front of us here in the council chambers is a copy of a salary survey that was conducted by our Human Resources Department, comparing the salaries of mayors in likewise municipalities nearby us, as well as of similar size and scope. And we will undertake to decide whether we think compensation needs to be changed or is good the way it is. And I don't have any particular lead off for this except to say that in reviewing what we had done before, it seems like we've been in a situation where compensation has not necessarily changed every year. So occasionally, as the review is undertaken, some larger jumps will be made. I think the last time the mayor's compensation was changed, it was set to increase in steps. So there was a change that happened last in 2019, and that had been decided a couple of years before that. So they sort of phased in an increase. And so we can look at it and do what we think is appropriate. And I don't have any particular opinion on that. I'm interested in hearing from the committee and from the council as a whole. Does anybody want to dive in? Councilor Hapworth.
Thank you, Chair McLean. I think that, looking at this, like we did last year, this is, it does seem like it's mostly in line with what other communities are doing. The average is probably skewed based on some communities that are significantly lower and some communities that are significantly higher. But when you look at what we're at, around 150 for the mayor, it's pretty in line with a lot of what other communities are doing. And I think this is one of those positions where it's maybe the rare position where we're not paying necessarily to directly attract candidates to the position. We're not paying someone based on their experience or their abilities or their performance. We're paying what we believe to be a fair position for what is a complex job that the people of Salem have elected. I feel like the 150 seems fair. I don't know if we want to look at a cost of living adjustment for that, but this to me seems like a fair number.
Councilor Watson-Felt.
I just want to add my thoughts that I concur with Councilor Hapworth entirely. My sentiments exactly. Thanks.
Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, Chair McLean. I also agree that this salary seems appropriate and would consider a cost of living. Just one perspective I want to offer when I look at the last increase being in 2019. I find when many years go by and then there hasn't been an incremental increase such as cost of living, then the salary gets behind and then all of a sudden we need a large increase, which can be, I just feel it's better budgeting and financial and financial oversight to have incremental increases, as opposed to all of a sudden it's been 6 years, there's no increase, it's behind, and then it has to be like 6% or something, and then, well, it was really large not too long ago, so then it goes, many years. So just in general, I'd rather see incremental cost of livings, every couple of years, as opposed to then there's a really long length of time when there's been nothing, and then we're trying to catch up. So I would be in favor of a cost of living.
Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, Chair McLean. So I'm not actually in this case for a cost of living increase. I think a few years ago, when it was raised incrementally, as the chair said, from 120 to 150,000, it was meant to bring this position to be in line with what other communities were paying. And I really feel like the cost of living increase is more for the rank and file employees of the city who are their pay, whether it's salaried or hourly, is based on a whole bunch of different criteria. And so I do feel like, from my perspective, I would leave it the way it is at 150.
Councilor Dominguez.
Thank you, Chair McLean. On being a member of the committee, I had to agree with most of the comments that I hear tonight. However, I'd like to just bring the maybe the idea that we're going to have a special election soon. It's going to be about a couple of weeks from now. And I think the input of the new mayor or whoever be elected is very important in terms of how we're going to continue to move forward in the great city of Salem. I think the comments that I hear from the group, a large council, Merkel, make a lot of sense. So those information plus whatever perspective the executive office need to bring, and the whole, the spectrum completely, will make us to make a better decision based on the fact and the information that we're going to have. So my point is that I think that just leave it the way it is, and let's maybe retake the discussion after we elect the new mayor, whoever it is, so we can have a better picture of what the direction we need to take. And that's my humbling opinion on this. Thank you.
Councilor Stott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to agree with a lot of people here and add my comments. So I agree with Councilor Merkel that incremental increases are due and fair. Although looking at it's hard to just pull a number out of the hat right now, and I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that tonight, just not having the data of what like a 2% increase would look like, or how would that affect any of these items. And looking at the other numbers, the 150 still seems reasonable. On that note, though, I will say we want to pay for the job, not for the person, just like we do with these other positions within the city. It's not a person that we're looking to pay for salary here, it's the job. And I think it's really highlighting the election time right now that we want to, we want to entice people to come be the mayor of Salem. It's an open job position right now. And then it will be again in 2 years. So we want to have, good, solid, qualified candidates. And I know that the current salary that it is at right now definitely discourages a lot of people from applying and from running. That's just not a salary that a CEO at a company of 4,000 employees would have. It's very much underserved. But all we really have now for data are the other communities around us, and it does look in line with that. So I think that's a lot of the sense of it's a municipal position, and you're not paid equal to a CEO at a major corporation, even though essentially that's what the job is. So I think the current salary is fair. I would be okay with moving forward with it, but I definitely think these conversations need to happen on a regular, good cadence like they are. And I'm on the fence about pushing for at least a cost of living, but I would be okay if it didn't happen. And I just want to reiterate that we're setting the salary for the position, not for the person, very much so this year. and looking at it in the sense of who do we want to encourage to apply for this position, to run for this position, and salary is a big part of that. So that's all.
Let the record show that Councilor Varela has joined us. So I will myself pick up on some of the comments I'm hearing. I think good points are being made on all sides. I think there is reason to consider a cost of living increase for predictability, and so that we are not having to make sort of large accounting changes every few years. And I do think the special election context is important. I think it's fair to consider that we are in a moment of transition and what that may mean to the people of the city if we suddenly are considering changes in wage at the same time. I do understand the idea that we are paying for the work and not for the person who is doing the work, and I think that's fair. I think I'll remind the members of the committee that we do have some flexibility in terms of how we structure such an increase, right? So the last time that we saw increases, they were not all delivered in the moment, right? There have been previous attempts where it was, we're going to lay this out for a number of years, we'll step it up over time. So we do have the option of making decisions that don't necessarily go into effect immediately today, tomorrow. We can consider when we think it might make sense to see increases start to begin, if we want to structure those around cost of living. It doesn't have to be immediate. And in fact, given how close we are to budget season, it probably would be better if we didn't suddenly start throwing wild cards into the budget conversation. Councilor Prasnowski.
Thank you, Chair McLean, not being a member of the committee. I just don't want people to forget that our votes to vote a raise for the mayor also votes a raise for ourselves. And I kind of shake my head on the ethical value of that. And I don't like the fact that when we vote the mayor a raise, we vote ourselves a raise. And I think that maybe we should be looking at how those should be separated, so that if we do vote for a raise for the mayor, that we're not voting it for ourselves, and maybe there's some other entity or some other way that we would be, our salaries would be addressed. It just kind of leaves a sour taste, I think, publicly. It could be construed that we're in it for self-interest, and I just don't like anybody having the ability to point the fingers at our integrity with that. So it's just something to think about with that. That's all. That's my only comment. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councilor Prasnowski. I'll note on that point that when we do vote to make changes in compensation, as far as it goes for the council, those changes are delayed until the next term, right? So we would all have to run and be reelected before we would reap any of the benefits of those kinds of changes, and nothing is guaranteed. Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, Chair McLean, and thank you all for those excellent points, especially the points made that the budget is coming up, and it doesn't sound like we, have an exact percent that would interest us collectively, if any. And to your point, it should be after, the next election for us. Maybe we could do something staggered, like keep it in committee with the idea of maybe considering for the first of the year for 2024, there's 2%, with the idea of 2025, 2%. So you get a 4% cost of living or something of those along those lines. But maybe keeping it in committee would get us past the election and our elections, and make it just a little bit more comfortable and give us time to think about what we exactly would consider. Thank you.
Councilor Stott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just confirmation on the process itself. So this is set in our ordinances that every 2 years, and it's the biennial organizational year, so not the biennial reorganizational year, not a biennial election year. So every 2 years, the mayor's salary is reviewed, and it has to be reported back to council by the first meeting in April. So it has to be done and set before budget, and it will be the salary for the next fiscal year. So that's the one that doesn't affect us, because we would have to be reelected. So we can't like come back and talk about this in 2 months. I mean, we could, but we can't do anything or any vote for another 2 years. So this is the vote every 2 years on what the mayor's salary, what we would recommend the mayor's salary to be changed. So we do have the constraint there. I mean, anybody on this body can put an order in to change the rule as to how the mayor's salary is set. But right now, the rule is the mayor's salary is set every 2 years by a recommendation from the committee to the full council by the first meeting in April. And that's why that timeline is there, because our salaries are tied to the mayor's salary. So it wouldn't start until the next council body is begun. So we're not effective. I mean, we might be changing our salary if it's the same members there next year, but there's no guarantee of that, as the chair said. So just a little, I guess, context there, that it has to be reported back to the full council this evening. Today's the deadline for it. And then it can't be brought up or voted on again for another 2 years because a lot of those reasons.
Thank you.
Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, Chair McLean. I continue to be resistant to the idea of changing the salary at this point in time. And a little bit of context. So we're going to have all the department heads come in front of us and talk about their needs and retaining employees of the city. We're a really lean city. We have less people doing more stuff than most of the cities around us. And we've already talked about how many people do multiple tasks. But one example is our DPS. Compared to other communities in the area, they are not paid at the same level. And so unfortunately, the newer employees don't have as much experience, takes a lot more training. And I just feel like when we have a limited budget, I'm going to refer to something that Councilor Prasnewski said, as a political group, we're not only making a decision, yes, it may not be the councilors who are sitting in the seats may not be the ones who are getting the raise. They may or may not run again or get elected, but we're still making a decision that I find to be political. And I don't feel like a position like this should be based on cost of living. To Councilor Stott's point, it's kind of like the CEO. And maybe the CEO's salary isn't enough to attract people, but I don't believe that should be affected by a cost of living increase or a small incremental increase. I feel like we should make a statement that says that our priority as far as compensation to the employees of the city is to retain and attract people in the departments like DPS and electrical that are really struggling with all the issues that are happening with getting people in the trades to work for a municipal government. And that's just my perspective. I will not favor an increase over the 150,000.
Any other comments? Would anybody like to make a motion? Councilor Hapworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion to recommend a salary of $150,000 for the mayor.
Councilor Hapworth moves that we recommend a salary of $150,000 for the mayor to the full council, maintaining the current pay level. Seconded by Councilor Watson-Felt. All those in favor? All those opposed? Let the record show I saw 4 hands, plus my own. The matter carries. I'll take another motion. Councilor Stott moves to adjourn. All those in favor? 5 hands in favor. We are adjourned.